Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, it's August 18th, 2023, and here at the beginning of the class and discussion part of our morning Bhakti Yoga program, I'll recite a few more verses to continue to invoke auspiciousness in our gathering. Om Angyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pite Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Harine Hare Krishna. So today we'll read from Srila Prabhupada's Sikshamrita, Nectarian Instructions from the Letters of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So this is a collection of his thousands of letters divided into 50 different categories. So it's published in 3 volumes. Somewhat at random, I chose Volume 2. Volume 2 has letters on categories like public relations, personality descriptions, Krishna consciousness in the home, health, hearing, and so many. So I've turned to letters. Okay, it's the end of a session called Living Entity and the beginning of a session called Mahamaya and Yogamaya. So these are letters that Prabhupada wrote, and okay, so we'll read a bit from Srila Prabhupada. So this is a letter that Prabhupada wrote to Chaturbhuja, May 9th, 1973. In answer to your several questions, first, what is meant by conditioned soul? Conditioned soul means one who has accepted something illusion as reality. Condition means that due to imperfect desires, the spirit soul becomes dependent on material conditions for his satisfaction. Your second question, how does he become conditioned when the Jivatma is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge? The answer is that it is not the soul itself that becomes mixed with matter, but it is his consciousness that becomes absorbed in trying to enjoy the matter. Out of desire to lord it over, the jiva soul forgets that he is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss, and identifies with the material energy. So it is the consciousness of the conditioned soul that is affected. Your third question is, does the soul ever become weak or strong on account of its association and contact with material nature? It is not the spirit soul that becomes weak or strong, but it is his determination to become Krishna conscious that he becomes weak or strong. By the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance, he becomes weak, and by the influence of the mode of goodness, he becomes strong. But by the association with pure devotees, he becomes strongest. Your fourth question, whether or not it is possible for the soul to exist without having this eternal gross and subtle body covering it. So if the bird is existing within the cage and someone takes away the cage, does that mean that the bird can no longer exist? No. This body is illusion. It is only because of our attachment for this body that we have to remain within it. But as soon as one transfers his attachment to Krishna, then no more is there any need for this body. Your fifth question is, Bhagavad Gita says that the conditioned soul is subjected to 4 defects. Does that refer to the body or the soul? The defects are there in the living being when he is acting on the material platform. As stated in Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, verse 16, Dvavimal pushaloke ksharas chakshara evacha ksharas sarvani bhutani kutasto kshara uchyate. There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every entity is called infallible. So the defects are there only on the material platform. One who is acting in Krishna consciousness is beyond those defects. Your last question, how is the soul degraded by lust, anger, and greed when it is transcendental to the body? Doesn't that imply that the soul has changed? And Srila Prabhupada responds, no, the soul never changes, but due to his tininess, he may become forgetful of his relationship with Krishna. The spiritual quality of the spiritual spark has not changed, but he has forgotten his spiritual nature, bewildered by the imperfect desire to become equal or greater than Krishna. I hope you're able to understand all these points. As you know, I am translating so many books into English from the Sanskrit. Therefore, I am very busy. Of course, if you ask me, I am obligated to reply because I am your spiritual master. So please direct your question to my representatives. Could do a whole course on that letter. Okay. Yeah. Lots.
I don't understand what he's saying at the end. Is he saying to direct his question to his representative?
Yeah. Yes. Direct them to his temple president, GBC. At the same time, he's saying like, yeah, like I'm available. You can write directly to me. You can write directly to me, and kind of, he's also training to go through my senior representatives who are.
Who probably knows the response to those questions.
Yeah.
At least theoretically.
Right. Yeah, Prabhupada's he's saying that I'm available to personally respond. At the same time, he's setting up a system, go through my representatives. It's like they're both true, that's my understanding. In a letter, October 14th, 1973, to Drishtaketu Das, Prabhupada writes, it is not that the individual jiva is within every atom, but Paramatma is in each atom. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita as follows, Andantarasta Paramanu Chantarastam, who is situated within every atom. And in a letter to Srup Damodar Das, June 23rd, 1975, Srup Damodar was the PhD in chemistry. Prabhupada, basically, life comes from life, is conversations with Srup Damodar. So Prabhupada writes, regarding your question about the jiva soul in the heart and the jiva soul within the cells, they are separate. Both are jivatmas, but a particular jiva belongs to a particular body. There is the jiva in this body, but there are also jivas within the cells. Just like I am living within this apartment, but does it mean that no other living entity can live here? There are so many ants, flies, bugs, they're also living within the apartment. Even in the stool, there are thousands of living entities. Okay. So Prabhupada writes on September 28, 1975 to Prema Batra, regarding your question about the difference between the mind and the soul, in the Bhagavad Gita it is directly said that the mind is inferior energy in a subtle form, and soul, jiva, is superior energy. So they are completely distinct. Mind is not spiritual, but mind is a subtle material form. When the soul becomes captivated for enjoying the material world, instead of rendering service to Krishna, that is the beginning of his fall down. When the living being thinks himself to be the enjoyer, that is called false ego. His constitutional position is to serve Krishna, so this false egotism degrades him to pollute the intelligence and the mind. So we're just yesterday in a group coaching session, we used the analogy, the computer analogy, like the hardware of the computer is like this external body, and then software, that's the subtle material body composed of mind, intelligence, and ahankara, false ego. So we're not the hardware, we're not the software, we are the irreducible quanta of consciousness, the spirit soul that is the operator of the computer. Self-realization means to realize those distinctions, and Jivara Srupoi Krishnera Nichidas, Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Beta Beta Prakrash, and to realize not just who we are as not the body, not the mind, but as spirit soul, and that our natural function is to serve God with love and devotion, to serve Krishna with love, and that's the activity of the soul in self-realization. We're going, as Bob Dylan said, we're going to serve somebody. You got to serve somebody. Our choice is where to direct our service. We can direct our natural propensity to serve in ways that get us entangled in more and more foolishness and degradation, or we can direct our propensities for service towards watering the root of the tree, to use that analogy from the Bhagavatam, Yata Tarora Mulani Shechanan, to serve Krishna, and then that's win-win for everyone. Srila Prabhupada writes to Ganasham Das, who later became known as Bhakti Tirtha Swami. He writes to Ganasham Das, November 9th, 1975. You mentioned about the well-renowned psychologist at Harvard who was interested in finding about man's true nature. Man's true nature is to render service. Originally, the living entity was meant for rendering service to Krishna, and as soon as the living entity misuses this marginal position, he becomes conditioned by material nature. And Srila Prabhupada writes to Shrutadev Das on October 30th, 1976, it is correct that the Brahmagyoti is comprised of spiritual souls, and that ultimately nothing is impersonal. Dead matter means forgetfulness of Krishna. It's very powerful. Dead matter means forgetfulness of Krishna. So we forget Krishna, then we're like dead. We're like zombies. Right? And ultimately nothing is impersonal. Yes. Krishna exists, Krishna the person exists in every atom, in the heart of all living entities. Yeah, once we forget who we are as servants of Krishna, then we're dead. Then this becomes like a machine life. So
Yesterday, go ahead.
I was just going to go, the next section is called Mahamaya and Yogamaya.
Yesterday we were reading Nectar of Devotion, and we had a discussion about what's the difference between emotion, like material emotion and spiritual emotion.
Yeah.
Because it seems that spiritual emotion now as painful.
Yeah.
He was describing so many pain from Mother Yashoda,
Right.
and so many people in pain. And where we landed is those emotions on the spiritual platforms, they are life-giving.
Life-giving, okay.
They're just life.
Yeah.
Life of the soul. And then the emotion on the material platforms, they take away life. They are killing the soul.
That's the key distinction.
Yeah, that's what we...
Thanks for that. That's the key distinction. Thank you. Hare Krishna. All right. So we're reading from Volume 2 of Srila Prabhupada's Siksamrita, letters from Prabhupada in different categories. So this is a letter to Jagannath Babu, March 14th, 1949. So this is about 16 years before Prabhupada sailed on the Jaladuta and came to the USA. Jagannath Babu, if I remember correctly, was a senior mentor for Srila Prabhupada when he was growing up. He makes some comments like that, if I remember correctly. Okay. So Prabhupada writes, the Mahamaya, who is known as Durga, Kali, Chandi, Bhadra Kali, Mahamaya, etc., is the embodiment of his external potency as described in the Chandi, and it is the thankless task of the Mahamaya to punish the Asuras with her all-powerful weapons in the 10 directions of the material world. She does not only create and maintain this material world, but also she annihilates it according to the direction of the Almighty God. In the Bhagavad Gita, this Mahamaya has also been described as Devi Maya, and she is so powerful that the Asuras cannot bypass her at any rate. The Asura can get remission from the stroke of the Trishula of Mahamaya when he, the Asura, surrenders himself to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I believe Prabhupada might be referring to verse 7.14 in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Devyesha Gunamaya Mamamaya Duratya. So he's talking about the Maya that bewilders people, but he says this is a divine energy. It's a Devi Shakti. Mame Vaye Prapadyante Mayame Tam Tarantite. As superintendent of the material world, the Mahamaya has been described Durga as the protectress of the great Durga, or fortress of the grand universes. She gives all the necessities for our existence, but as soon as we become an Asura, like the Mahisa-asuras, Hiranyakashipus, and in later ages like the Mussolinis and such others for the exploitation of the material energy, the Durga Devi at once appears herself with her dreadful trident and begins to devastate the whole existence by such tribulations as war, famine, pestilence, or sometimes annihilation of a total existence. The methods of annihilation are invented by the human brain, such as the atomic bomb, etc., are also her creations, but the deluded Asuras who are caused to act by the mode's material nature do think themselves as the originator or inventor of such weapons. In that way, a constant struggle is going on between the Asuras and the Prakriti, and the Asuras are thus being punished in different ways, which the Asuras cannot overcome by any method except by full surrender unto the Almighty God. Hare Krishna.
She's Lucifer.
What's that?
She's Lucifer.
Lucifer, yes, yeah. The devil, right?
Yeah. That's interesting that in the Christian theology is like a man figure.
Yeah.
And in Vedic theology is a female figure.
Yeah. And the Christian theology, the male kind of looks like Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of looks like Shiva. So the Vedas also have a male destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
And so Durga and Shiva work together. So it's just like the Vedas give a more sophisticated, nuanced understanding. Not that I'm expert in Christian theology, but the idea is Lucifer is bad, like that, and like trying to fight against God. Here we understand Durga, or fortress, or prison house. She's not bad. She's actually a great devotee of Krishna. She's a great devotee of Krishna, and she's doing her job, which is generally a thankless task as warden of the prison house. So it's kind of the same idea, but maybe more sophisticated.
She's a mother.
She's
a mother.
She's a mother, yeah.
Who wants the children to serve the father.
Yeah, Malini's saying Durga's a mother who wants the children to serve the father. So she's caring about us. Mm-hmm. And so that's why another meaning of Maya is compassion. Mm-hmm. Is compassion. Mm-hmm. And so if we learn to see our different trials and troubles and tribulations, this is the compassion of Mother Maya. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then to move me from my own bliss to, as Prabhupada says, towards full surrender to the Almighty God. All right. So this next one is also from 1949. All we have is 1949, and it's not clear who Prabhupada's writing to, but they found the letter, and so not all the details are there. So Prabhupada writes, the mother nature is, as she should naturally be, the most faithful mistress of Godhead, and she becomes angry with the behavior of the Asura and thus assumes the role of Devi Maya, generally known as Mohakali, Bhadrakali, Durga, etc., and takes at once her grim trident and inflicts the weapon in the heart of the Asura, who is also her son, just like you just said. The Asura thus becomes subject to the threefold miseries, and this is done according to the plan of Godhead, as the mother has to chastise the disobedient son in order to make him all right. This process of chastisement is necessary for the benefit of both the Asura and Deva sons in order to stop disorder in the great plan of Godhead. As sons of the Asura, however, surrender unto Godhead as the obedient son and servitor of the plan of Godhead, the Asura is turned into a Devata. The angry mode of Mother Nature at once subsides, and she appears to such godly sons as the most affectionate mother in the role of Yogamaya, commonly known as Lakshmi, Sita, Radharani, etc. So ultimately, just like, at least ideally, the warden of the prison house and the guards, they're very happy when the prisoners are rehabilitated and get released and become productive, contributing members to the society. Then the society benefits, and those who were formerly prisoners, they're happy because they're no longer violating the rights of others. So similarly, yeah, Maya or Shiva, yeah, they're not just like mean and nasty and like to be sadistic, but they're very happy when we become rehabilitated and we remember who we are. Hare Krishna. Continuing from 1949, this is September 1st, 1949, Prabhupada's writing to the Secretary of the Gita Mandira Trust. And he writes, the mother nature, or the material energy of Godhead, as she should naturally be, is the most faithful mistress of Godhead. She does not tolerate the exploitative motive of the Asura children of hers, and for this she has to assume the role of Devi Maya, and takes at once her grim trident, and inflicts the weapon in the very heart of the Asura, although the latter is her own son. The Asura is thus subject to threefold miseries, and this is done according to the plan of Godhead. The mother nature, therefore, chastises her disobedient sons in order to bring them to the right path of fulfilling the plan of Godhead. This process of chastisement is necessary for both the Asuras and the gods alike. Such process reestablishes the plan of Godhead. The Asuras, however, when turned to act accordingly to the plan of Godhead, at once become a god. When the Asura becomes a god, the angry mode of nature subsides. my understanding. It's not that we become like the all-powerful, omniscient Godhead, but as we remember who we are, spirit, soul, servant of Krishna, then we become godly. Right? We can't become God. We can remember who we are, servants of God, and to the extent that I actually surrender to my original nature as a servant of Krishna, then we develop godly qualities. And I'm appreciating Prabhupada's language here. He says she has to assume the role of Devi Maya and takes at once her grim trident. In English, there's the term the Grim Reaper, which we can imagine Prabhupada was familiar with from like Charles Dickens and that sort of thing. And Grim Reaper, death. Grim Reaper means death. So he's using similar terminology. Her grim trident, and inflicts the weapon in the very heart of the Asura, although the latter is her own son. Next, in this section entitled Mahamaya and Yogamaya, which is quite an extensive session, that it's going on for 30, 40 pages. We'll just get to a few more letters today. So now, Prabhupada, he's in the United States. Well, this is after he came west. May 13th, 1967, he's writing to Mukunda. So now he's writing to his disciples. The devotees of the temple must keep themselves engaged, otherwise they cannot make progress in Krishna consciousness. The Maya is very strong, and as soon as there is opportunity, the Maya will come and attack. Therefore, everyone should be very careful against the attack of Maya. And the only effective defense is to remain in Krishna consciousness always. Next, Prabhupada, on August 27th, 1967, writes to Mrinalina. He writes, "The feeling which you had by becoming compassionate to the fallen bum is very good. But the best way to deliver a bum is to revive his dormant Krishna consciousness. If you can do that, then give the bums good food and shelter. If you cannot do that, then simply supplying food and shelter is serving the Maya. But there is no benefit to serving Maya, you know, as it is all false, temporary or illusion. We are concerned with reality, not Maya, and that should be the object of life."
So the word bomb is a quite English word.
Bum, B-U-M. Yeah, a bum is it's an English word, like the homeless person, the drunk person on the street, just kind of loitering in the street and probably very down and out in his life and on his luck maybe. Dirty condition of life, a bum on the street. It's English.
And that lady want to help them, and he says it's good sentiment.
Good.
But you're not really helping them.
Good. He's training his students in the distinction between good and what's sentimental and how can we really make a difference for people. So next, Srila Prabhupada writes to Brahmananda, August 4th, 1967. "Don't be afraid of my being attacked by Maya. When there is a fight between two belligerent parties, it is always expected that there will sometimes be reverses. Your country in the Western world is mostly under the grip of Maya, and the modes of nature in passion and ignorance, and my declaration of war against the Maya is certainly a great battle. Maya saw me very successful within 1 year, so that I got so many sincere young followers like yourself and others, so it was a great defeat to the activities of Maya. Western country youngsters giving up illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling is certainly a great reverse in the activities of Maya. Therefore, she took advantage of my old age weakness and gave me a death dash. But Krishna saved me, therefore we should thank Krishna more than eulogize Maya. So far my present health is concerned, I think I am improving. At least I am taking my lunch better than in New York. So as soon as I am a little fit to return to the field of battle, I shall again be in your midst.
Can you repeat the part where it says Maya? Can you repeat
Okay.
the beginning part, if you don't mind?
Which part?
The beginning part when
Okay.
it says Maya.
Prabhupada writes, don't be afraid of my being attacked by Maya. Which is interesting, but it's like I don't think Brahmananda was saying, of course it's very early so we don't quite know where that, but I don't think Brahmananda, Prabhupada's student, was saying that he's worried that Prabhupada will become confused philosophically or get into sense gratification, but attacked by Maya in terms of his physical health like that. Yeah. Don't be afraid of my being attacked by Maya. When there is a fight between two belligerent parties, it is always expected that there will be sometimes reverses. So Prabhupada's using a very military analogy, right? Maya is one devotee we can declare war against. And so I'm declaring war against Maya and I'm being successful. So Maya's going to strike back, and maybe in the form of, because there in August 67, by that time Prabhupada had gone back to India because he had some severe health difficulties there as 1967 went on, there in San Francisco, New York. So he went to India to recover health. So, yeah, like Carrie says, yeah, so it was a great defeat to the activities of Maya. Western country youngsters giving up illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. It's certainly a great reverse in the activities of Maya. Therefore, she took advantage of my old age, weakness, and gave me a death dash. But Krishna saved me. Therefore, we should thank Krishna more than eulogize Maya.
This is interesting that Prabhupada really goes there because his disciples were so young and they may not understand humility.
That we go there, that he's...
Prabhupada is like really humble in that sharing.
In what way?
In what way is that?
Yeah.
That to imagine that Maya is fighting against him.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Maya doesn't fight against a pure devotee, she works with him.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it seems like Srila Prabhupada is showing a lot of humility to his young disciple who may not understand that it's humility.
They might not. Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's an interesting letter. It's quite bold. Yeah. And he'd say, yeah. And my declaration of war against the Maya is certainly a great battle. So, yeah, well, we can imagine Maya, the demigoddess servant of Krishna, is so Prabhupada so dear to her. At the same time, her job was and is to create big obstacles for Prabhupada's movement.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
like another way to see it, and of course I don't want to go against Prabhupada, but is that, Maya, she's very stringent to make sure nobody goes to the spiritual world that is not completely pure.
Yeah.
So that's her job.
Yeah.
And she's going to cooperate with the pure devotees who have the same goal.
Yeah.
And that, in fact, Prabhupada being strict the way he was increased the devotion. Like,
Yeah. Right.
it was for the benefit of his follower.
Yeah.
And it seems like Prabhupada is going from that angle out of humility.
Of humility.
Like, to show maybe his disciple how Maya is going to fight us.
Yeah.
But Maya is not fighting him.
Not fighting him.
She's fighting illusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
No, so many facets here. Fascinating facets. Yeah. Yeah. Well, him fighting Maya, it's kind of like Krishna fighting Bhishma Dev, but it's a real fight, but they're actually cooperating.
Yeah.
In pastime. And Prabhupada's using the military analogy that it was like, need to go very deep, be prepared, because Maya can attack us in humility. Prabhupada's saying us, but but Prabhupada will attack you, and like each one, like we need to be in fierce battle mode. Otherwise, we'll be tricked by Maya quite easily, and we'll be overwhelmed by illusion and forget who we are as servants of Krishna quite easily.
Yeah, it seems that out of humility you want to teach them something.
Yeah.
Like, be vigilant.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a battle. This is a battle. But for Prabhupada, it's different than for his neophyte students, for sure. But still, he's teaching a lesson.
Yeah, because in co-creation, Prabhupada co-creating with Maya to be so healed and almost dead. Yeah. And that's when his movement boomed.
Yes.
That's when his movement boomed, really, because of his illness. His disciple became a lot more serious. Yeah. And then more devotees joined during that time also. Yeah. When Prabhupada came back to America, it was like there was hundreds of devotees in New York, in
Montreal,
San Francisco.
Yeah. And Prabhupada says like that. Prabhupada say, I come in 65. Sometimes Prabhupada will say, it really got going in 68 after he came back from India. Like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a cooperation. But Prabhupada is showing a lot of humility and maybe to teach his disciple to be on guard against Maya.
To be on guard.
That she is going to do everything to stop us from being Krishna conscious.
She'll do everything to stop her from being just like...
She doesn't want fake.
Yeah, it's like the warden of the prison house. For someone to be released from prison, they need to really prove that they're ready to be law-abiding citizens. So in that stringency, the warden ideally is wanting for the prisoners that they really go very deep in their goodness. One fascinating letter after the next on these topics. Before we continue, any other comments or questions or sharing or realizations at this time?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, kid.
Yes. Yes. I just thought, going back a little bit, back to when Malini said about Maya being comparative to the devil, and then in Christianity, and then it made me think of the book of Job. Of course, that's in the Old Testament, but I'm sure this has been talked about a lot, but Satan was used by God, like you mentioned. Maya is a servant of God. She's not bad, or she's got a job to do and she's doing it. And in Job, Satan is used a very similar way. He's really used by God to test Job. And it's just so similar. And then Malini just said, Maya will do anything to test the soul to make sure it's ready to go back to God. And that's exactly what Satan was doing to Job. He was using everything and anything, and God gave him permission to use anything and everything to test Job. And I don't know, the similarity is just amazing when I'm listening to the whole conversation. That's my comment.
Thank
To
you,
me, it's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It's very similar, very related. And I appreciate that reference to the book of Job. It's amongst my favorite books in the Old Testament, which I'm actually more familiar with than the New Testament. So yeah, Job went through so much, and yeah, so God used Satan. So I think it's a very illuminating reference, because generally in the Jewish and Christian, I think also the Muslim conceptions, the idea is the devil or Lucifer, they are bad, and they're fighting God. It's like that. But here you're saying that actually God was cooperating with the devil. Um, Fairly recently, and I was reading Saint Teresa of Avila, and she talks about she talks about how, like, meeting different devils and this and that, and ultimately she said, like, I'm protected because ultimately they're servants of God, they're servants of His Majesty, and that's my intention too. So as long as I stay fixed there, then they'll just cooperate with me, because so which I see it as like it's not the standard Christian, Jewish, Muslim conception that we hear, but when we go deeper into it, they have that conception too, which is completely the Vedic conception. As Brahma Samhita says, Shristi Stiti Pralaya Sadhana Shaktireka Chaeva Yasya Bhuvanani Bibarta Durga Ichanarupamapi Yasya Chachesta Tesa Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Durga, Maya, Bhadrakali, and they're all serving for the pleasure of Govindam, the original person. Parampara Prabhu.
Just to follow up on this thread of the Christian, conception and everything, I just went to my a couple weeks ago. Went with my parents to their church. It was actually they were actually becoming official members of this church. It was like an initiation. They had been members of churches before, but in the place that they lived, this was in the place they've moved to in the last, uh, whatever, it's been 7 years now. They just were like official members of this church, and so it was like initiation. It was a auspicious time to be there. I felt like, but and then the preacher was talking about Jesus being tested by the devil
Yeah.
in the desert. But then the preacher was very clear that it wasn't the devil that was arranging the test. It was God that was arranging the test, and that it was spirit in this. I guess in the scriptures, at least this translation, it said the spirit that led Jesus into the desert. So it wasn't the devil that led Jesus into the desert. It was spirit, and it was God arranging it. So that was um, it was interesting to hear. I was appreciating that.
Thanks for sharing that, and it's a very wonderful example from the New Testament, completely consistent with the different sharing here. Congratulations to your mom and dad for their initiation. And yeah, it does sound very auspicious. Thanks for sharing that example of the preacher's comments on Jesus being tested in different ways by the devil. He could be famous, he could have all the worldly pleasures. Thanks for sharing that, Parampara. Laura.
Good morning, Hare Krishna, David and Marie and everyone. I wanted to share something. First of all, my dog here, his name is Little Dave, but his official name is Saraswati Devi, because he's teaching me to be a better person. And he's been engrossed since 5 a.m., 5:15, whenever I turned on the
Yes.
computer. And he's been very kind and patient. And however the words are in the songs, he's listening to the vibration, and he's a part of this as well. So
Hare Krishna, Saraswati Devi.
yes, thank you. And I've said many times over many years that death is a great teacher. And really, I've spent this lifetime trying to make friends with death. And I'm currently immersed in a situation where it still continues to teach me. And resonating with Patrick is saying and what you're reading and what Miss Kim is saying and Miss Marie is that the Spirit does give us the lessons through God, I think, as well. And so I'm just kind of sharing that I hear you and I hear the words probably more louder and clearer today than ever because I'm so immersed in what death and life are teaching when there's such a thin line that I'm currently experiencing as a caregiver.
You're a
So,
caregiver for
as a I'm caregiving currently in a caregiving situation, and it's a still I continue to believe death and the lessons are a great one of the greatest teachers that we can experience. And I think it was in one of the first readings that you were saying that Prabhupada mentioned that Western materialism is set up for Maya or designed for Maya. And overcoming that, is, did he mean Western as in Western culture that we are in, as opposed to Eastern culture?
It's a very, very materialistic culture, consumerist materialistic culture.
Yeah, learning how to overcome that or desensitizing or deconditioning ourselves from the culture that we were brought up in is such a great teacher of death, teaching in death.
Thank you, Laura.
I'm more
I'm inspired
spiritually.
by you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for sharing. Srila Prabhupada uses the analogy of, he compares death to the jaws of a cat. And the jaws of the cat represent death and its accompanying friends, old age and disease. So we can imagine what's the experience of the jaws of the cat from the point of view of a rat or a kitten. Now, a rat or a mouse, it's very terrifying. But those same jaws of the cat from the experience of the kitten, oh, the jaws of the cat, that's very sheltering, it's loving, it's warm, it's nurturing, it's secure. So the kitten represents one, us, to the extent that we give our life to Krishna consciousness, to self-realization, for that happiness that'll never be crushed by time. And the mouse or the rat represents us to the point, to the extent that we're giving our life in a way that's for materialism, in a way that further alienates us and moves us to more and more forgetfulness, more and more illusion that we are the body, and the illusion that we'll be happy by satisfying the sense of the body. So then death is, it's terrible, it's terrifying. And to the extent that we're dedicated to serve God with as much sincerity as we can, then death, old age, they're blessings. Then they're blessings. Malini.
Hare Krishna. 3 days ago, I went to visit, Nanda Kishore, as you know, Prabhu. And he was Prabhupada's follower since 1967.
Very early.
Very early. And he did a lot of devotional service, gave a lot of legacy through his songs and his plays and all that. And I have been in contact with that family with many years, so I've seen his journey. And it was so nice to see, I was thinking, wow, Krishna is so merciful that he get to spend the last week and a half of his life surrounded by his family, chanting Hare Krishna, and his friends. I know you went to read for him. And I was thinking wow, how amazing the mercy of Srila Prabhupada is. And Nanda Kishore Prabhu, he passed yesterday.
Yeah.
And happened to just find out. So I went there and I was there for 4 hours around the remains and the remains looked so saintly. It was so saintly. and it was the first time I was in contact with the remain of,
Yeah, someone who recently left the body. Yeah.
Yeah, I was never
before,
in my
yeah.
life in contact with the women. I know Laura, I've been so much contact with death through her hospice work, and I haven't been.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful, so beautiful. Like there was no ghastliness, there was nothing but beauty. And yeah, and he felt such a difference, and the presence of Srila Prabhupada, that he said, like, if you serve me, surrender unto me, serve me, I'm going to come at the end of life.
Yeah.
And I could really tangibly see that.
You could experience it.
Yeah, and he left when he decided to leave. In the morning, yesterday morning, there was a lot of devotees chanting, reading.
Yeah.
And Nanda Keshava was like conscious, receiving, not interacting but receiving. And then when everybody left, and it was just his family members, his two daughters and his wife, and then one more person, then he left very peacefully with a smile on his face. And I was, like, because Laura is speaking about death, and how much merciful, how much merciful death can be.
Yeah.
How merciful death can be to clear up whatever need to be clearing up, to have the passing away of a pure devotee.
Yeah.
It was really amazing.
The kitten consciousness, he gave his life to serve Prabhupada, and there's such an auspicious, beautiful death experience.
Yeah, that was given. It's a gift to receive such a beautiful, it's not like we created, it's my strength. I think it's more like a mercy and gift. And and those 4 hours went so timelessly.
Timeless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. Hare Krishna. Yeah, Nanda Kishore Prabhu passed away on 2 days ago on Wednesday. Yeah, I visited him for an hour or so, and I had the good fortune, I read Bhagavad Gita to him out loud, and Mother Janava, who knows him very deeply, could see that she said that he was absorbing Prabhupada's vibration in a very special way. I was reading Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, like those 20 verses or so, where Krishna talks about death and the difference between the soul and the body and matter and spirit. Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yavanam jara tata dehantara praptir dirastatra namuyati. Those verses and purports, and I could feel this Srila Prabhupada's mercy very, very present there, very present. Okay, I'll share a personal Nanda Kishore story since he passed away yesterday. Maybe you've heard this, I don't know. All right, so this is going back 31 years, 1992. I had recently come to North Florida. I was residing in Gainesville, and so was Nanda Kishore. And it was a Sunday, and I was planning to go to the temple for the Sunday feast, New Raman Reti, the farm in Alachua. And he had asked me, can I get a ride with you? I said, sure. So we planned at a certain time. We'd meet at my car, and I would drive him. So that time came, and he's not there. And then I wait some time, and he's not there. And then I drive to the Sunday feast, And this is 1992, maybe early 93, but I think it was 92. So the community was much smaller then. It was just beginning to boom. And the temple was a single wide mobile home. And the temple that we're familiar with was constructed in 1995. And okay. So it was a smaller thing. So soon after I got to the Sunday feast, and no, when I was driving to Alachua from Gainesville, I was thinking things like devotees, even like the American devotees, and yeah, they don't keep their word, they don't do what they say, and he's not responsible. I had all this stuff going on. So I get to the Sunday feast, and pretty shortly, I see Nanda Kishore. I don't know how he got there, but I see Nanda Kishore. And he comes to me, and he's very jolly and cheerful. Oh, dear Govinda. He's very jolly, cheerful, very loving. Okay. So shortly after we started exchanging, I realized it was daylight savings time. Laura's laughing. I realized it was daylight, which he knew because he was on it, and he was like that. So like I was like an hour late to pick. Okay, and he was just go, oh, glad to see you. Yeah, Jai Prabhupada, wonderful feast. So I was just like triply embarrassed because I was the one who was disoriented and confused and spaced out, and so that's one thing when I realized. And then on the way there, I had all these petty critical thoughts, whereas actually I was the one who, and then facing Nanda Kishore, and he was just so joyful, accepting, loving, like that. So, Hare Krishna, Nanda Kishore Prabhu Ki Jai.
Jai.
Okay, I'm going to read one more letter. This is Srila Prabhupada, October 4th, 1967. And, okay. The letter after this, which I'm not going to read, is Prabhupada. It's the Bellevue letter. Prabhupada writing to Brahmananda in October 6th. It's the Bellevue letter. So I'm not going to read that one. But this one I'm going to read. Please guide your innocent god sisters who have come to our shelter. Prabhupada's writing to Roy Ram, October 4th, 1967. Roy Ram, he was like the first compiler and editor of Back to Godhead, like that, very early devotee, very intellectual. Please guide your innocent god sisters who have come to our shelter. Girls are more susceptible to the finer attack of Maya. Boys are a little stronger in getting out of the intricacies of Maya. Meena, Leena, Jadharani, and all the other girls who were so qualified, good-looking, intelligent, educated, and seriously engaged in Krishna consciousness should always be given protection from the attack of Maya. In my philosophy, there is no abstinence from sex life, but Krishna consciousness should teach us that sex life is the cause of us becoming conditioned to the material nature. Therefore, advanced Krishna consciousness students should also know it well that sex life should also be dovetailed with Krishna consciousness. Better to avoid it, if not possible, have a regulated married life, but in all circumstances, our primary necessity is to advance in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Thank you all for your presence and attention and absorption in transcendental sound vibration in the form of letters from Srila Prabhupada. Any further comments, questions, or sharing at this time? Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for your association.